Good afternoon, everybody. Looks like we have Hilliard, William, Melissa, Garrett. Did I miss her? I think that's it, right? My name is Bill Roberts. I'm a cultural anthropologist. Geographically, I have done a lot of work in West Africa over the years, and I'm serving as the current chair of the anthropology program at St. Mary's College. I joined the college in the fall of 1991, so I've been here for many years, and really looking forward to sharing some conversation with you this afternoon about the anthropology program at St. Mary's College, which I think is one of the best undergraduate programs, not just in the Mid-Atlantic region, but in the country because of the opportunities that you have here. And it's a great pleasure for me to introduce my friend and colleague and the incoming chair of the anthropology program, Professor Julie King. Julie, I'll let you go ahead, and I can be like a griot and say lots of good things. That's a praise singer. Say lots of great things about Professor King, easy to do, but I'll let her tell a little bit about herself, and then we'll get started.
Well, thank you, Bill, and thank you guys for joining us today. I see Melissa, Garrett, William, and Gabriella. And as Bill said, my name is Julie King. I am an anthropologist, but my specialty has been archaeology, although I do a lot of oral histories and kind of, ethnographic work. And I'm really looking forward today with Bill, telling you more about what our department does. And then hearing your questions about what you're interested in, because we might not touch on those. And if we've got something to tell you, we'd love to tell you. So thank you all for joining today.
Right, and just to follow up, I'm going to share a screen with you here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Let me go ahead and put this in, kind of a bigger thing here. Hopefully you can see this. I want to encourage you that as you have questions, you can either put it on the chat and we'll ask Emily to, kind of stop us, but you're welcome to speak up and, either say something or ask. So I titled this slide that in the Department of Anthropology, we consider ourselves a community of practice. We learn anthropology by doing anthropology. So we're, and this is a long tradition at the college, experiential learning, but the idea of a community of practice is something that you might not be too familiar with. It actually is a term that refers to a group of people that regularly interact with one another. They share a common passion, a common love of something like anthropology. They learn from one another, and you, again, learn by doing. So if you join us at St. Mary's College and you decide to do some anthropology, you will get a chance to do many, many things, and it starts really pretty early. So we're ranked, I think it was last year, the 6th best undergraduate program in anthropology in the nation by group schools.com. And what you see here around the border are pictures of many of our students at conferences, but I want to call your attention to Professor King in the upper left. That's a great picture of her receiving an award, a gift on behalf of the Piscataway people. Professor King is one of those scholars who not only recovers through archaeological excavation artifacts, but works with the descendants of the people who had made those and used those artifacts today. So she's working with Piscataway peoples and in Maryland and Rappahannock peoples in Virginia, and is really kind of working to bring the past and the present together and help people kind of regain control over their narrative of their histories and who they are. You know, it's challenging to get two professors on a call because we both have lots of things that we want to say, but let me just turn this over to Professor King for a minute and see, Julie, just tell me when you'd like me to go on to the next slide, please. But if there's anything you'd like to add here.
I'd just like to note that a lot of our work is actually in Maryland and Virginia, and I'm dying to know where our guests today are from, if you are from Maryland or the Middle Atlantic region. But these images, they have students in them, but they also do have the communities who we work with. And if you look over in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see where students are actually getting hands-on experiences with making, I think in this particular case, they were making cordage, which is a way to make twine if you're a Native person. Back in the day, of course, Native people today live just like everybody else does. And you can see the slides along the bottom, the Piscataway people in the center. I assume, Professor Roberts, that is from the Gambia, one of our students teaching a course in the Gambia?
That's right. That's one of the students. We'll talk a little bit more about international education opportunities that you can get through the anthropology program, but we had for many, many years a very, really a great program in the Gambia, West Africa, and that's one of the participants in a classroom in the Gambia teaching math.
So one of the things is that we are very engaged. I mean, we get out in the community. We're not just textbook anthropologists. I mean, and I think that's where we sort of separate from the pack because we are a small school and we're located in such a historic area of the country, really. And I mean, that includes Maryland and part of Virginia. We have a real opportunity to go out there and make a difference. And because we have students who help make that difference, we do that. So go ahead, Bill. I don't want to, well, I'm sure we have lots of good slides to show.
So at the college, you know, we cover all four fields of anthropology in American anthropology, US American anthropology. Probably the largest field is cultural anthropology. I'm a cultural anthropologist. Professor Iris Ford is a cultural anthropologist. Archaeology is cultural anthropology, and Professor King is a historical archaeologist and an ethnographer and an oral historian. She's a lot of things, and the incoming chair. I'll just say that one more time. We also have Professor Liza Giganto, who's a historical archaeologist as well, and has done a lot of work in West Africa and some in the Caribbean, and also works in the Mid-Atlantic. Biological anthropology, we don't have a biological anthropologist yet on staff full-time, but we have an anthropologist from Jefferson Patterson Park Museum who teaches biological anthropology every fall. Nor do we have a linguist, but a colleague in international languages and cultures is a linguist. I teach a class, and I'm teaching a class actually right now in language and culture. So these are the four fields. We give you a four-field introduction. We have each of these courses covered in more depth at the 200 level. But where we really kind of excel, I guess, is in the cultural anthropology and archaeology. And I will just say that as far as kind of a common theme in much of the research and professional development that we do, we in anthropology, fits in with what you might call Atlantic world studies, or understanding the Atlantic world. And I'll let Professor King tell you a little bit more about just what that means.
So the Atlantic world is really, well, some people like that term and some people don't. but the Atlantic world historians and anthropologists put it at about 1492, which is an easy date to remember if you remember what happened in 1492. It's kind of the beginning of the modern world. This idea that people from Africa and North America and South America and Europe, all these people had, before this time, had grown up in the same village and knew everybody in their village and interacted, married, had children, socialized with people in their village. That starts to change after 1492, where all of a sudden people start to realize the world is big and that there are a lot of people in the world. And of course, it has a history that we are the product of today, some good, some bad. And so we use anthropology to try to explore how that history came to be. How we are today is not something that just happened, and appeared fully formed, but it comes out of this whole Atlantic world. And we have the resources to explore that through archaeology, through cultural anthropology, a little bit with linguistics, and even a little bit with biological anthropology when we, are working with archaeological sites that might have cemeteries on them. So back to you, Professor Roberts.
Okay. One of the questions that a lot of students and their families understandably, consider, or they at least think about and maybe ask the question is, what can I do with an anthropology major? I think the better question is, what can't you do with an anthropology major? Anthropology provides you with just skills and resources, or you might think of them as competencies, the ability to do things. You gain a lot of confidence in yourself and in your abilities coming to a college, the National Public Honors College, like St. Mary's College. So what you see here is based on a survey of our alumni that I conducted last year, spring of 2019. And up until 2007, so that was 13 years ago, anthropology and sociology were in the same department. It was a combined program. We both now are separate programs. And so we've had, if you look between 2010 and 2019, about 160 some alums, and about a third of them responded. And so almost 1 in 4 are working in the private sector of those that responded, 1 in 10 with the government. A number of them have gone on and are, actually working now as archaeologists professionally. And again, even probably the largest sector is education, that we have a lot of our alums who are working teaching, coaching, counseling, but they're working in the educational sector or the nonprofit sector. And a growing percentage of our students are going into work in health. And I'll just mention this, that the incoming class next year will have a chance to participate in a new inquiry to fulfill your general education requirements called the Public and Environmental Health Core Inquiry. And I have been actively working with a colleague in biology and other faculty to set up this opportunity to fulfill your core requirements while you're also learning about public and environmental health, a topic that is certainly has a lot of current attention. Professor King, anything you want to add on this slide?
I think you did a great job.
Thanks. I'm going to go on to the next one. Professor King, why don't you take this one?
So what you're seeing in the background is an image of our students working in a class called Archaeology Practicum. This goes to our hands-on idea that we want to give our students an opportunity, not just to read about what anthropology is and what we do, but to do it. And so the 4 classes, or the 3 classes, and then the upper level independent studies and directed research are classes where we expect our students to get that hands-on experience. Anthropology Toolkit is really, it's almost like a incredible buffet of learning all the different things that that anthropologists do. Every week there's something new to learn about, and you might not become an expert, but that's your introduction to it. You can see it's a 200 level class. It'll be one of the first classes, if you chose to come to St. Mary's, that you would take, and to really give you a sense of what anthropologists do. Same for archaeology practicum. And then the research methods class is one that all of our majors take. And you identify a project and you work on it as a class together. And there have been some really interesting projects that students have done. Some have involved archaeology, some have involved learning about diet among our students, just all sorts of really interesting things that kind of turn upside down what you think that you know. And then finally, the directed research and independent study. They can be part of your academic career as well too. There's a topic you want to explore, but it's not really offered in a class. And so you take an independent study or directed research, you pull together the material that you're going to read, you get guidance from a faculty mentor, and it allows you to explore that topic in a little bit more depth if that particular topic isn't going to appear in a class. We are a small school. I mean, that's what makes us really special, because we are small. So there are only so many hours in the day, and we try to offer the gamut, but sometimes there is a little bit that students will want to learn about that we don't offer. So, Bill, I hope that explains what.
Yeah, I think the only thing perhaps that we would have also included here would be internships. So internships can carry academic credit. And of course, that's very hands-on. And many of our students do internships as early really as their sophomore year. And we work with the Career Development Center on setting up those internships. So here it just again emphasizes learning through experience. Different people have different ways of learning. Some people are visual learners. Some people, are more, attuned to, what they hear and learning. But we all learn by doing, and that's, really, I think, the key. So here you have one of our students on the left-hand side who graduated a couple years back, who is actually in the Native American village at historic St. Mary's City, and doing some work there, taking some measurements. On the right-hand side, you see one of our current seniors who's looking at a really interesting artifact under a microscope. We've got an anthropology lab where a lot of archaeology is done at the college with some really good tools. So I think as Professor King was emphasizing in the last previous slide, is that you've got these courses that kind of build you in the same way that you're, kind of imagine a scaffold going up a building. So that scaffolding is your knowledge and your skills. You learn how to use the tools. You learn which tools are best to answer which kind of research questions. And then eventually, you learn to design your own research project and figure out which tools are going to help you answer the research questions on topics that you're most interested in. The middle picture is a student who went to the Gambia, I think about 6 years back, and is in the process of doing a kind of a family tree, a genealogy in a what we call a compound. This is a residential unit, multi-family, multi-generational in the Gambia, West Africa. Professor King, anything you want to add to this, or can I just go on? Or
You can go on.
Okay. All right, Professor King, I'll let you go with this one if you don't mind.
So here we have some of our distinguished, probably now alums, who are digging. I think this looks like it was in the Gambia, and they are excavating. It looks like some kind of pit or feature, and then of course they'll screen it for artifacts. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see that we do work in Maryland. We've done work in the Gambia. We've done work in Maryland, Virginia, and also St. Croix. And I will point out to you that historic St. Mary's City, and some of you, if you are Marylanders, then you may have been here. I think the 4th or 5th graders come, so you may have been here at one point, but we have the resources of historic St. Mary's City. They offer a field school. And also, if you're into museum studies, we have a museum studies program, and you can get a lot of experience over there. So here they are, some of students excavating some material, probably from a household where we have little record of who lived there. But the record that we do have is this artifactual record. And, try to read it and see what it tells us about the people who lived in the past. And by the way, the Gambia, Maryland, the Caribbean, I mean, these really all pull together for our Atlantic World Focus. So go ahead, Bill.
Right. Yeah. So I was there when all these alumna, the 2 top alumna have both graduated and both served in the Peace Corps. The one in the middle is working on her master's in public health at Johns Hopkins, and the one in the lower right-hand side has worked at a couple of museums and is working in a position in a museum in the Chesapeake area now. So I think, as Professor King mentioned, anthropology is, because it is such a broad focus and really was kind of conceived as something that integrates information. It takes what we call this holistic or all-encompassing, trying to put all of the pieces together to better understand people. And one of the things that I had not mentioned yet, but we do have the major in anthropology, but we have a concentration in archaeology because our opportunities for students to do archaeological research and the area in which we live is just, really lends it to that. I mean, we've got great human resources, but we've also got a great geographic context for archaeology. And so museum studies is a cross-disciplinary studies minor, and many of our students that are doing archaeology, pursuing an archaeology concentration, also minor in museum studies. Environmental studies is a cross-disciplinary studies major, and a number of students major in both anthropology and environmental studies because they complement each other so well. I mean, again, I think one of the great things, one of the things that I think is so powerful about anthropology is anthropology gives you both the kind of practical skills, helps you to develop those social skills to interact with people, and the conceptual skills to do that, to interact with people in a very respectful way in which you try to understand and value human cultural diversity, human linguistic diversity. And then women, gender, and sexuality studies, which is another cross-disciplinary studies minor. All of the faculty in the department are active in these minor programs or major programs because they do draw on faculty from many different disciplines. Back to you, Professor King.
We should probably move on. This is just a group of our museum studies students. We had a group called Museum Hack come down. And Museum Hack takes a great deal of pride in upsetting your typical expected museum experience. So they were encouraging our students to do things like when you go to a museum and you see a painting, to reenact that painting, to engage yourself in a way as not just a spectator. And so this happened to be when Museum Hack was down and encouraging all sorts of uprising in the museum community. It was actually a lot of fun.
We've mentioned already that, we have, the college is built on a National Historic Landmark. The anthropology program, which I don't have a picture of the building. We're in a what is the newest building at the college. Great resources, as a facility. Anthropology Museum Studies occupy that building, and then right next to us is the Archaeology Department for Historic St. Mary's City. And we have a number of our alums working in that program, and they do an annual field school. Their professionals work as adjunct faculty, as do the professional anthropologists, most of whom are archaeologists at Jefferson Patterson Park and Museum, which is the State Museum of Archaeology for the state of Maryland. And on the left, this is one picture just to highlight our work with, in archaeology, descendant communities that include the Piscataway and the Rappahannock. And although the college has closed its program in the Gambia, I'm still very active. I work with colleagues at the University of Baltimore, Maryland, the University of Maryland, Baltimore Medical School, and we're still doing work in the Gambia and West Africa. And as I say, we're establishing a new partnership with the St. Mary's County Health Department. And so anthropology is, and our students will have some opportunities there. All of these are a way of thinking about this as a network of partners, and each of these partners provides opportunities for our faculty and students to work together with other professionals. This goes back to that idea of a community of practice. You learn by doing. You learn from the others who are more experienced than you, gaining the confidence that when the time comes, you're going to be able to do this on your own. Professor King, anything?
No, but I'm wondering, I was just looking at the time, and I wanted to ask, before we move on, do any of our guests have any questions? And you can either, ask, or you can put the question in chat. I mean, I'd love to know more about you all. Are you all from Maryland? I see that you're just as quiet as my students are on online teaching. Well, let's go ahead forward, Professor Roberts, and maybe we'll hear something from our colleagues.
So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one, but I've talked about this just a little bit already. The Atlantic world is a way of, again, thinking about a network of transportation and human migration that connected Western Europe with Africa, with the Americas, and by that I mean South America, Central America, North America, and the Caribbean. So we have a field school, field study program, really. I think it runs about 4 weeks in St. Croix. It's led by one of our adjunct faculty and one of our full-time faculty, and they have a proposal to take another study tour in 2021. We did close the Gambia program, but I've led 3 groups of students to Senegal over the last few years, and that program will run again. And then we have another program that is being offered for students taught by one of our adjuncts in Brazil for the summer of 2021. Many of these programs take place in the summer, and again, provide you with an opportunity, to work in some place that's really, that's outside the United States. And that's mirrored by opportunities to study here in the United States with field schools that we have here. I think there are maybe some, Julie, are you seeing those?
I am seeing some chats.
Yes, yeah.
I see Howard County represent. And William is asking about medical anthropology. Ooh, Bill, you have to tell him about it.
Oh, well, I'm really glad you asked about that. We have offered courses in medical anthropology. I am studying up on medical anthropology. I'd studied that in graduate school. And so there will be opportunities for that, as well, again, as working with the St. Mary's County Health Department here. One of the things that, if you're following, and how could you not help but follow it, but one of the things that's going on now is, of course, the contact tracing as part of the mitigation. That's something that certainly lends itself to ethnographic methodology. And so, yeah, so that's a growing area. That's probably one of the fastest growing areas in cultural anthropology, and something that we're building up. Julie, I'll turn this over to you for the archaeological field schools.
Okay, so one of the things, if you are interested in a career in archaeology, and even if you aren't, it's a great way to learn how to do data collection as an anthropologist, just a different form of data. And you can see on the right-hand side, some of our students, at the top, they were surveying what looks like a quarry site. That's actually in Prince George's County at Piscataway Park. The middle slide is Historic St. Mary City's Field School. And the bottom slide is a Rappahannock Indian house. A lot of people think Indians are no longer around, but that's so not true. And this is actually a late 1800s Rappahannock Indian house that the students in my Native American history and culture class, we recorded it with some members of the Rappahannock. You can see in the text that we have these field schools. There's one that we are just starting next. We're supposed to start this summer, but of course, you know, everybody's plans are off today, or this year at least. So next year will be a National Science Foundation Colonial Maryland Field School, especially for people from underrepresented communities and schools. Historic St. Mary City, which is the museum on top of the settlement, the first settlement, and the first European settlement, and then the Archaeological Survey course, which takes students out into the greater community and, you know, tries to identify sites, archaeological sites, and buildings like you see down on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side. So there you go.
All right. In addition to doing research, our students also present their research. And so we have department resources that support students going to here in the lower left.
Dr. Roberts.
Yes.
We have just a few minutes remaining, so if you want to put any final remarks in there, I don't want to have to cut you off short, but I want to make sure you're able to get in what you want. We have about just a few minutes remaining, okay?
All right, thanks. So I'll just go anyway. We have our students go to graduate student conferences. They go to the Mid-Atlantic Archaeological Conferences where they've done very well. The American Anthropological Association, Society for Applied Anthropology. On average, we've averaged about 7 to 8 students presenting at professional conferences a year, I'd say over the last 3 or 4 years. We have an anthropology club, as well as the Lambda Alpha National Anthropology Honor Society. That's the club working on, I think they're doing some napping, making some stone tools in the back, and that's open to more than just anthropology students. These are just some examples of what our alums are doing. Maddie Roth is working for the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Association. She graduated in 2013, does underwater archaeology. Ben Baker is a social worker. Beth Masinko graduated 10 years ago. She's out west doing environmental education. And Sarah Platt in the upper right-hand side is working on her PhD from Syracuse. Everybody ends up with a capstone project in 2 weeks' time. We are going to be having our students present their capstone projects. If any of you are interested in watching some of those student projects, please contact the admissions office at the college, and we will make arrangements to admit you so you can see the kind of work that our seniors are capable of doing. And now we have time for questions. Julie, Professor King, I'm sorry that I didn't give you time. I was just trying to respond to the fact that, as is often the case, professors talk and
Don't worry. Wait, let's hear. How about our guests? Do you all have any questions for us? You can chat or ask out loud.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Gabriella. I'm from Montgomery County, but I actually had a question about internships. I was
Yes.
wondering if you could give me some examples, because that sounds really interesting, of some internships that some students have done or been a part of.
Yeah. What did I do? Did I stop sharing? Yeah. So we have students that are doing internships, anthropology students that are, I told you about the museum studies minor, and they actually receive funding to pursue internships through the Sullivan Scholars, and they work with at different museums. We've had students working at the Smithsonian, students working locally at Historic St. Mary's City Museum. So a lot of students that have done work in museums. We've had students that have done internships abroad. We had a student working in Senegal last summer, working with an organization that was teaching American English. Julie, can you think of some internships that you might want to mention?
I mean, they're really, it's wide open. I mean, if you can find a place that you would like to intern at and something can be worked out. I mean, we have sent students to the Smithsonian. You know, I've had interns. I mean, the places that Professor Roberts has mentioned, really, it's the sky's the limit. And these are credit-bearing internships. In a few cases, they might also come with a stipend. They're really great for giving you sort of that experience out in the real world. And in fact, if you complete an internship, you get what's called e-law credit, experiencing liberal arts in the world. You can get that credit in other ways too, but one of the ways is through these internships where you really go out and you are modeling what it's like to be out in the real world. So, you know, did you have any ideas for your own? I mean, what are your interests?
So Gabriella, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I receive, as department chair, Professor King will get the same thing, announcements about internships, and I just forward those to a distribution list of anthropology majors and minors. But we also have the Career Development Center, and so we work together with them so that students, you know, have some direction with regard to identifying internships in field schools and other kinds of experiential opportunities. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. By the way, I really like the name Gabriella. My youngest son's named Gabriel. So, any other questions? Well, I hope that you all have enjoyed the time that we've spent together. Professor King and I, as you could see, we could talk quite a bit about this. The other thing that I'd like to just mention is that if any of you would like to talk with a current anthropology major, please let the admissions office know or contact myself or Professor King directly, and we will set you up so that you can hear it from the student's perspective, not just from us, but hear it from your peers who are a little bit older than you. Emily, I think we're probably, thank you all very much for coming today. Really enjoyed talking with you and hope to see you here next year. Emily, we're going to put this back to you.
All right, well, thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was very informative for you. That is all that we have for you. Again, if you have any questions, please email myself or the anthropology professors, and we will be happy to help you out, okay? Enjoy the rest of your day and your week.
Bye.